University, Shantiniketan, West Bengal, India. And the best thing is that you can have the email ID so that after this talk is over or his technical session is over, so if you have any query or any interaction if you want to do, then we all can interact with her through email. Now, sir, we are this FDP on intelligent computing. We are on third day. First day, the talk was on planning and coordination for robots. Second day, and the talk was given by Dr. Arup Kumar Sadhu, scientist, research and innovation, Tata Consultancy Services, Kolkata. And second day, the talk was on philosophical and ethical issues of artificial intelligence, and delivered by Professor Shomi Roy from NITTR Kolkata. He is a professor over there, and now we are on third day, and we are we will hear from Paramartha sir on hybrid intelligence, a case study. Myself, Dr. Suparna Vishwas, coordinator of this program and head of the department, Computer Science and Engineering, and Dr. Sriparna Saha, program co-coordinator, assistant professor of computer science and engineering, on behalf of the organizing committee of this FGP and also on behalf of our university, welcome you, sir. Dr. Sriparna Saha will give your brief introduction and will share the abstract of today's talk. Sriparna madam.
Thank you, Suparna ma'am. Today, on the third day of the FDP, we are extremely honored we got Professor Paramartha Datta sir with us. He is currently a professor in the Department of Computer and System Sciences in Vishwabharati University, Bolpur, Shantiniketan, West Bengal, India since November 2007. He did his bachelor's and master's in statistics from Indian Statistical Institute, Kolkata, India in 1988 and 1990 respectively. Subsequently, he did his Master of Technology in Computer Science in 1993 from Indian Statistical Institute, Kolkata, India. He did his PhD in engineering in 2005 from Bengal's Engineering and Science University, Shibpur, India. He is co-author of 8 authored books, apart from 13 edited books and more than 240 research publications in peer-reviewed journals and conference proceedings. In addition, he is co-inventor of 17 published patents. So far, he had the opportunity to supervise 8 PhD scholars who have received their degree, 2 who have submitted their theses, right, waiting for follow-up formalities, apart from 6 who at present are pursuing their PhD work. He is a fellow of Institution of Electronics and Telecommunication Engineering, Optical Society of India, Institution of Engineers India, senior member of Association for Computing Machinery, Institution of Electronics and Electrical Engineers, Computer Society of India, International Association for Computer Science and Information Technology, and member of Advanced Computing and Communication Society, Indian Unit of Pattern Recognition and Artificial Intelligence, the Indian affiliate of the International Association for Pattern Recognition, Indian Science Congress Association, Indian Society for Technical Education, System Society of India. He is the recipient of Excellence in Science and Technology Award 2018, conferred by the Indian Science Congress Association, Government of India, and Insert Teacher Award 2019, conferred by the Indian National Science Academy, Government of India. Will be honored by his talk today, that is on the hybrid intelligence, a case study. The brief the details of the abstract of that report is that of the speech is that soft computing is a proven computational platform with immense potential. Many real life problems which cannot be solved by classical computational platforms may have soft computing based solutions. In spite of such strength, soft computing techniques suffer from intrinsic shortcomings in some contexts. On some such situations, hybridization may be useful. In the present context, we explored the potential of hybrid intelligence as a formidable methodology address the problem of detecting presence of hazardous gases, possible cause of human fatality in sewage systems. Such a system is capable of addressing the issue quite effectively. Thank you, sir, for your details, brief introduction of the talk. Over to you, sir.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Ipona.
Thank you, sir.
So, am I audible? Is it all
Yes,
right?
sir.
Everybody, all
Yes,
participants?
yes, sir. It's
Am I with everybody?
yes.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So, I think let us start.
Yes.
Today's talk, has already been pointed out, is on hybrid intelligence, a case study. Now, before I go into the details of or detailed intricacies or technicalities of the talk, there are certain issues which need to be clarified once and for all, so that things are understood better or perceived better. Now, first of all, there is a genesis insofar as this particular, topic is concerned. It's basically an outcome of a funded project, a research project funded by Department of Science and Technology, Government of India. Um, the specification of the project is given below. I mean, the title slide itself. Uh, the idea was that in course uh, of the project, we were entrusted to investigate a very interesting issue. Uh, what happens? Let me clarify it first. Then I think things will be better understood. Uh, now, what is the glaring reporting as it is available from, routine, routine materials and reportings, particularly media reporting, that there are instances of death, human fatality, uh, particularly in a system like ours, where some people, particularly responsible to clean the sewage system from time to time, periodically. It's a old practice that is still being maintained that some of them have to go down the sewage system physically, and incidentally, there are different hazardous gas components prevalent in the sewage system as it happens. We shall detail out all these things in due course of our discussion. It is just the gist that I am trying to share so that you get the basic idea. So what happens is that people, whenever get inside a sewage system for the purpose of cleaning or other associated activities, what happens is that some gas components which are typically hazardous from the point of view of hygienic point of view, because of their excess presence, uh, they cause death, the fatality of the human being. And it is a very, very tricky and critical issue that we used to face in those days. And even today, there is no mechanical or mechanized system, alternative system, and still this human participation in such a, what should I say, risky activity is still there, unfortunately. Now, the idea originally was mooted from that point of view. The idea was that instead of direct human beings getting inside a sewage system without knowing what exactly or how critical is the different, presence of different hazardous gas components over there at that particular point of time. The idea was to investigate whether it was possible to come up with some sort of a device, so to say, an intelligent device, so to say, so that if the device is reliable, it can be dipped inside before a person getting in, and if the device, so it's sort of a pilot activity, better to say, but the device itself will indicate if there is uh, excess presence of gas components, hazardous gas components that might prove fatal, and whether it is risky or uh, appropriate to get in if need be. So the idea was not exactly that it was accepted that there is no in near future there is no possibility of complete mechanization of the cleansing process of sewage system. It's still there, but just to arrest the human fatality associated to this age-old practice, whether it was possible. So that was basically the motivation of the present project, and with this, the project proposal was submitted to the Department of Science and Technology, Government of India, for possible funding. And in the first phase, some grant came up. It was a sort of a joint project, jointly conducted or executed by my university in general and my department in specific, where I was the principal investigator, fortunately. And then there was Bengal Engineering and Science University. Right now it is IIEST, Indian Institute of Engineering, Science and Technology. They were collaborating in the entire process. So it was that way a collaborative project, so to say. And accordingly, something came up as an outcome of the first phase of the project. Unfortunately, the second part of the project, that means further field study and field trials, and ultimately coming out with a comprehensive, gadget operable in real field. That fund, unfortunately, did not come. We don't know why, but at least some device we came up with, and with some, some sort of uh, errors or noises associated, it was working. So that is the condition that we ended up with. And because of lack of funding, subsequent funding, it was somehow it didn't mature to the fullest extent as it ought to have been done. So that is the background. Now, this is one part of the story, and the question of hybrid intelligence comes next. By the way, before I come into hybrid intelligence part, there is another part I forgot to mention. So far as the execution of the project was concerned, there was an associated scholar, PhD fellow, research fellow, better to say. Right now, after completing this project, he got an opportunity for a postdoctoral fellowship in Ostrava University, Czech. Followed by, he had a small, span of time he could devote in ETH, Switzerland, and right now he's one of my brilliant scholars. I am really proud of him. And right now he is with University of Reading, where he is a faculty right now. On regular role. So he did his best, and this is what we are going to share today. Is exactly what came out in the form of the implementation of the project, which eventually led to award of the PhD degree from Jadavpur University by my scholar, Dr. Varun Kumar Oja. Okay. Excuse me. So this is exactly the genesis of the background or genesis of the project. And now we are coming to the hybrid part. Now, there is, I think it wouldn't be ambitious to assume that we have got some basic knowledge about different components of soft computing. Okay? Why soft computing came? The reason soft computing was necessary because of the fact that there were computational issues which attracted the attention of the research community because some issues could not be solved by the use of classical mathematics or classical computation techniques as such. Now, this is because classical mathematics or mathematical aspects have got their limitations or drawbacks. It happens with respect to, typically happens with respect to any subject, any domain, and it happened with respect to the classical computational framework also. So something could be sorted out, something could be solved using the classical forms of, forms of mathematical or computational framework, but there were issues where classical components fell short of rendering justice to. Next comes, with this shortcoming of classical framework, people naturally started to 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 try to come out with some alternative or some extension, so that things which could not be sorted out using classical form of mathematics or classical computational techniques uh, can have some solution, meaningful solution with respect to this newly coming up newly coming up computational frameworks. So it is in this backdrop the soft computing paradigm came up gradually. Now, soft computing, as it happens, it has got three components primarily. Apparently independent, but not independent definitely, because they have got their internal relationship or intrinsic relationship between these components, and that they maintain some intrinsic composition or intrinsic relationship between themselves. That is where exactly the issue of hybridization came into being, and hybridization in certain issues we shall see in, uh, in in course of our discussion, that how it could be effective in certain contexts. In the year 1965, the fuzzy came up with Professor Lotfi-Zadeh, was the inventor. So Professor Zadeh was responsible for coming up with the context of fuzzy mathematics, which otherwise is an extension of fuzzy mathematics or fuzzy logic, better to say, which was the extension of classical logic or Boolean logic. And the classical, set theory got extended to its fuzzy counterpart, where earlier, set theoretically, it was interpreted that a particular element was inside the set or outside the set. A particular element is belonging to the set or not belonging to the set. So, sort of a dichotomic scenario where any alternative interpretation was not possible. So, there were two destinations of a particular element in respect of a set, either belonging to the set or not belonging to the set. Okay, so one was bound to choose either of these two options. There is no alternative other than these two. So it's called dichotomic scenario. Now it was Professor Zadeh through the extension of this uh, classical set theory, and he got his extension or proposed his extension to develop the concept of fuzzy set, where fuzzy set is basically it's not only that a particular element is belonging to a set, but at the same time, to what degree it is belonging to the set. That was the question was attempted to have an answer. Okay, so earlier it was the question was in classical domain, it was whether a particular element was belonging to a set or not. Now in fuzzy set theory interpretation, it, it, it got extended in the sense that it's not only that whether a set is belonging to a particular, an element is belonging to a set or not, rather uh, accepting that any element is belonging to any set is the question of a degree to which a particular element is belonging to a set. So from that point of view, for example, I belong to, as an individual, I may be an element of a faculty set. I may be an element of a human set, being set. I may be an element of of an animal set. So, any individual or any element is uh, is belonging to any set for that matter. It's that generalization that could be perceived or interpreted through this extension of fuzzy mathematics or fuzzy framework or fuzzy set theoretic extension of classical set concept. The question was to what degree? Now, so for example, my pencil, it belongs to the set of books, you know. Now, but next comes a pencil cannot be a book. So the way of interpreting it in fuzzy notion is that a pencil belongs to a set of books with degree of membership. This is called membership, associated membership, with membership value 0. Zero means that is, I mean, perfect non-belongingness, and the scaling is in between 0 and 1, and the other extreme 1 means that full belonging. So membership value 0 means that that particular element is not belonging to that particular set, and membership value associated to a particular element 1, value 1 with respect to a set means that it is fully
Excuse me,
belonging.
sir. Hello.
Yes, please. Any question?
Sir, actually, sir, first page is displaying, sir, hybrid
Yeah.
intelligence.
I am still
Okay, sir. Okay, sir.
okay.
Okay,
Let me
sir.
make
Please,
this
sir, continue.
background clear first.
Yes, sir. Please, sir,
Please
continue.
bear with me. Okay, it's intentional. Okay. So, but what I am discussing, is it understandable? I mean, is there any problem with the audience?
No, sir. No, sir. It is
Okay.
all clear, sir.
I am trying to get the background clear first, so that
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
subsequent phase it becomes meaningful and easily understandable. So that is my intention. Um, so let me pick up the old thread. So now, so accordingly, any element in fuzzy framework, fuzzy set theoretic framework, any element belongs to any set for that matter. So gradually, accordingly, the entire mathematical setup that was prevalent in classical mathematics, classical set theory, classical logic got extended, and naturally their fuzzy counterpart. That means fuzzy set, fuzzy logic, and all the fuzzy extensions gradually came up in due course of time. So historically, it's interesting history when fuzzy came for the first time in 1965, as propounded by Professor Zadev. He had to bear extremely hostile situation from, particularly from mathematics community. But gradually now, there is hardly anybody who challenges the, the necessity of fuzzy mathematics as an extension. This is because the classical mathematical framework or its different components have got different limitations or shortcomings, which fuzzy mathematics to some extent could um, prove to have been meaningful in answering certain questions, which were not possible in earlier situation to answer. So now, historically, philosophically, academically, technically, in whichever way you want to interpret, now it is accepted that fuzzy mathematics is a natural extension of classical mathematics. Next comes the question: is fuzzy mathematics, whatever way it came up with, gradually developed over time, uh, was it a panacea? Was it adequate to address all the issues? Accepted that classical mathematics or its different components have got individual limitations and drawbacks. That is why fuzzy mathematics came. But next comes the question: whatever came up in the form of fuzzy mathematics, with all its individual ingredients, were they sufficient or adequate to address all the issues? I mean, all the subsequent issues or questions. Historically, people started realizing that, well, even though it was a jump from the previous platform of classical mathematics, fuzzy mathematics still started showing its limitations or started showing its drawbacks in certain contexts. And because of this, you might be aware that there was subsequent developments, rough mathematics, then came, vague mathematics, vague set, vague logic, rough set, so on and so forth. So the next generation, next generation of fuzzy mathematics or extension of fuzzy mathematics came into being. Historically, it was because of some limitations. Those people started realizing using fuzzy mathematics. So what eventually we have come up with? Fuzzy mathematics, being an extension, natural extension of classical mathematics, still has got its limitations. Now, this limitation, whenever it is perceived, whenever it is felt, that that gives rise to the next level of invention. So this is the course of history. Not to speak of advent of fuzzy mathematics or its derivatives. It's generally applicable that invention comes because of necessity, because something is necessary which cannot be had, so we need to do something. So that is this motivation that is the reason for any invention or discovery or whatever you may call it. So this is fuzzy mathematics and all its derivatives, all this family. They belong to one component of uh, the subcomputing framework. Well, then there is another component known as evolutionary computation or evolutionary algorithms, which primarily deals with the purpose of search and optimization. And it's David Holland who propounded the concept of genetic algorithm to start with, which was notionally or which was biologically inspired from that point of view, where the biological genetic process in nature was explored or oriented for the purpose of computation. So that way it was biologically or genetically inspired form of algorithm or form of computation framework that came up gradually. So it was the starting was due to Professor Holland, and gradually then enough of research initiative came up with genetic algorithm, with its different, once again, its derivatives, generalized form of genetic algorithm, evolutionary algorithms as they are known as. Other computational framework using evolutionary philosophy. So evolutionary philosophy is basically a philosophy where we try to reach to a particular solution, maybe an optimum solution, in an evolutionary manner. So through some process of evolution, and this evolution is some heuristic, some sort of heuristic. And based on this heuristic, we're trying to get to that or get near to that particular solution in my search space. So naturally, there is a huge search space, complicated it may be, where exactly we don't know where the particular optimization or optimum solution is residing. So it is hiding. It's typically a hide and seek game sort of thing, and we are trying to get hold of it. Now the question is, the way we do it, the nature of hide and seek game is basically, if it is done in an evolutionary manner, that means the solutions evolve, a set of solutions evolve over generations, and evolve for better and better, and going in that sense, in that way towards the optimum solution. If this philosophy works, then this is basically your evolutionary algorithms or evolutionary computation framework. Okay, so now once again the question comes: why the question of evolutionary algorithm or genetic algorithm at all was necessary? Once again, it was because the classical form of optimization techniques, may it be simplex or whatever it may be, they have started showing their limitations or drawbacks in certain contexts. Primarily because there are problems in computer science. In fact, I mean, through the computer science community, what is known as problems of you know computationally hard nature, maybe NP complete or NP hard class of problem, uh, which uh, which theoretically as yet uh, cannot be cannot be cannot have any uh, polynomial time exact solution. That means you cannot get an optimum solution uh, in polynomial time deterministically. Okay, so until and unless it is proved that P equal to NP. So whether the question whether P is equal to NP or P is a subset of NP, it remains a $1,000,000 question as yet, and it remains so for a long time. So better not to get inside that particular particular type of difficult problem. It's not our intention for the present also. Rather, what we are interested in is accepting the reality that it's not always possible to get good algorithm given a complex or a or a problem which is otherwise very hard in nature uh, in reasonable amount of time. The question that classical form of solution platforms cannot be cannot cannot be expected to give good results or provide good results. The question comes, what would be the solution? It is in this context the issue of evolutionary algorithms in general and genetic algorithm in specific came up gradually and found its place. Now, the community accepted that evolutionary algorithms or uh, genetic algorithms, they do render justice in certain context and very meaningfully and very efficiently. But interestingly speaking, if we try to get the theoretical aspect, background theoretical aspect, the question why genetic algorithm, for example, the classical form variant, although for example the simplest one, as propounded by Holland. So the question why genetic algorithm did serve the purpose of getting a meaningful optimization or optimum solution, maybe in suboptimal sense or precise optimum sense. I mean, why theoretically it was possible that it could achieve this? The answer to this question remains still an open problem. So, to justify theoretically why genetic algorithm, even in its simplest form, uh, could converge to the optimum solution, given a hard problem, still remains an unanswered question. It's really not that easy a task, so far as my experience goes. Not to speak of its subsequent variants, that means gradually over time, subsequent variants of genetic algorithm or evolutionary algorithm gradually came up. And, you know, with some good results, with some good opportunities, no doubt about it. But at the end of the day, the question still persists. Well, whether this evolutionary computation techniques or evolutionary computation framework uh, was it adequate to address the issues of optimization fully? Answer is unfortunately no. Answer is unfortunately no. Even with best possible, heuristics developed gradually over time, uh, there are problems where any form of evolutionary algorithm or any form of evolutionary computation framework has been proved to be quite worthless. Sorry to say. It's not to injure the passion of anybody, but it's fact. Technically, it's the fact that it has got its limitations, its drawbacks also. So, which once again means that evolutionary algorithm or evolutionary computation framework, even though it's an the natural extension of classical form of optimization, optimization techniques, even then, it's not going to serve your purpose fully. It can go to a meaningful extent, but at the end, your hands are tied. No, you cannot go any further with this. So you need something more to think. So this is the scenario of evolutionary algorithms, the other component. Coming to the third component, which is basically artificial neural network, or the question of classification or recognition related issues. So artificial neural network is the third and one of the most formidable component of soft computing, where primarily artificial neural network once again was a biologically inspired one where the neural system, biological neural system, got mimic in the form of a computation framework. And this particular artificial analog is artificial neural network. So once again, it was biologically inspired. So what it means that soft computing as such and its different components in general, most of them are biologically inspired. So biologically or naturally inspired in general. So the idea was that these natural phenomena, whether can have their meaningful artificial counterpart, particularly useful in the context of computation. That was the motivation. Now, artificial neural network, gradually, it was fundamentally a framework used for the purpose of recognition, cognition and recognition. So the question of learning was there associated. It's like as if a mother is trying to see how her child or how her baby gets acquainted with newer and newer items, identifying them. Okay, so it was that. So a new ball is introduced to the kid. Well, and the mother tries to sorry for the interruption.
Hello.
Am I audible now?
Yes.
So the idea that I'm sorry for the interruption. So what it was is that the artificial neural network, they're primarily responsible for making recognition of items. So it's as if there are several items, and the question of recognition, appropriate recognition of them by some artificial mechanism. That was what it is intended to serve the purpose of. Right? So artificial neural network is aimed for that purpose. So it's a matter of classification and proper classification, and by making appropriate recognition of different objects. That is what it exactly is. So how did it come? The issue that I was talking about. So a particular ball, how a mother introduces a ball to her kid. Well, this is a ball baby, right? And subsequently, after some time, once again that appears before the kid, and mother asks, "What exactly it is?" "I told you, baby. Can you tell it?" So, if the baby can spell out appropriately fine, the task is complete. The task of recognition is complete. If not, then once again it has to be reintroduced and time and again. So this particular loop goes on until and unless the cognition or the recognition is appropriately done. The cognition is complete, right? So that is how it is perceived or interpreted. So it's a sort of feedback loop that is operating there. You understand? And through this feed forward and feedback, this learning process takes place, where mother plays the role of a supervisor or plays the role of a teacher, and the kid plays the role of a learner. Now, this teaching learning mechanism is precisely incorporated in the form of a particular structure called artificial neural network, and through the process of which the question of artificial way of recognition, appropriate classification can be achieved. So this is the third component. Okay. So more or less these three components together, they form the more or less the exhaustive periphery of soft computing. And using these individual components, the question of so-called advanced or next level of computation can be perceived. And the objective of this particular generation of computation using soft computing techniques is primarily to get or to achieve the task of so-called machine intelligence or machine learning. So that means ultimately the intention is to make the machine intelligent, quote unquote intelligent, so that after with all these duly ingredient available to the machine is proficient enough to behave intelligent in an intelligent manner, and like a human being, at least to some meaningful extent, it can behave. Now, well, associated thorny issues come up. Well, can a machine ever be able to surpass a human being? All these philosophical questions are bound to come. I am not exactly going into that part. It is not exactly the cup of tea for the present talk also. Contentious issue. Personally, I believe that no, machine can never surpass its creator. That means the human being. So human beings are after all quite intelligent or intelligent to that level that they cannot allow the machine to surpass themselves. So that's a separate story. I'm not going into that. Now the question of hybridization. Now the stage is set for hybridization. Well, now it is accepted that well, all these individual ingredients, may it be fuzzy mathematics, may it be evolutionary computation, may it be artificial neural network, they have got their strength as well as their limitations. Okay. So now the question of hybridization comes. Well, it's as if these are individual entities with different different components of artificial intelligent system design. So the question of whether this can be clubbed together. So let me give you an example. This means that whether say the drawback of fuzzy mathematics can be supplemented to some extent by some other component, or maybe the drawback or shortcoming of artificial neural network can be effectively supplemented by the other component of software. So it's sort of a collaboration. The necessity of collaboration that gradually could be explored. Okay, so it is this backdrop that gradually developed the notion of hybridization or hybrid intelligence in general. Okay, so hybridization is basically the platform where multiple number of ingredients simultaneously contribute to give rise to better solutions, more efficient solutions. Right. So let us proceed now. Now we have made the point here. But before I proceed, my question is there if there is anything that you want to discuss or maybe seek any clarification, it's the point of time where we can do that. Is it clear to all? May I proceed, please?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. All participants are requested to kindly post the question or any queries in the question answer section or in the chat box.
Okay,
And we will
that
take,
is
yes, sir, yes, sir, yes, sir.
okay. I will be happy to answer all those questions once my
Yes, sir.
talk is in a logical position to.
Yes, sir, yes, sir.
Okay.
So please continue, sir.
So this is the outline. Uh, so now the specific application, what I was talking about, the sewage gas detection system, some issues pertaining to that. So then alternative solution strategy. This is specific to the problem that we shall get in. Okay. Some intelligent approach, statistical approach, non-hybrid approach, neurohybrid approach or hybridization approach, and different type of things. In fact, uh, after we finish the talk, we shall see that how in certain situations hybridization could provide you some good options or good meaningful contribution. So let us proceed. A very quick recapitulation, some part of which we have already discussed. So this is the chronologically the subjects develop. Artificial intelligence followed by machine intelligence and machine learning. All these are individual ingredients in the form of fuzzy mathematics, evolutionary computation, artificial neural network, and finally the hybrid intelligence is the combination of all these together. So uh, the background is human beings are intelligent. Let me gloss over quickly. Then most of the part we have already discussed. So human beings are intelligent. Their intelligence are characteristically natural. Effort to have the artificial realization of natural intelligence. So the question that artificial realization of the natural counterpart. A platform to achieve this task was artificial intelligence. This is how artificial intelligence as a subject, as a domain, came up with. Can these ingredients be used further? So that was the question. The artificial intelligence is the artificial analog of natural intelligence, first of all. Artificial intelligence used for efficient computation as naturally intelligent entities do, like human beings or maybe other animals also. What with these artificial intelligent constructs? Is it possible to embed them in a machine? The idea was that, well, some artificial analog counterpart of natural intelligence could be achieved. Now, something we have achieved. It's the ingredient of artificial intelligence. What to do with it? So put it or try to embed it in your machine so that after it is appropriately embedded, the entity, the machine as an entity becomes intelligent. Okay, starts behaving intelligent. So that was the idea. It's the essence of machine intelligence. So that is how machine intelligence comes. Machine intelligence is the structured methodology of imparting artificial intelligence in a computing system. A machine is otherwise a passive entity, we all know. A learning is necessary to convert a passive machine into an intelligent entity. So this conversion, that is what you need. Okay. Such process of systematic learning of a machine comes under the purview or scope of machine learning. Now machine, so naturally, first natural intelligence, then comes artificial intelligence, then artificial intelligence embedded inside a machine gives rise to machine intelligence. And in order to achieve this machine intelligence part, you need to have some learning mechanism which comes under the purview of machine learning. So this machine learning task rests on the technical ingredients of soft or intelligent computing. Soft computing has got these three components we have already discussed. Now, fuzzy mathematics, human beings are capable of, let us have a quick recapitulation uh, one by one. So fuzzy mathematics, human beings are capable of handling and processing real life applications which are mostly imprecise, vague, and uncertain. So that is exactly where you are. So the typical question, just for an example. Uh, take a glass, okay, and pour some water inside it. Fill it partially. Okay, it's a very interesting example. So fill it partially. Now the question is, with this partially filled glass of water, how will you interpret it? Can you say that it is a glass full of water? Answer is no. Can you say, is it an empty glass? Answer is no. So if you are going to have two options, either say it is filled up or say it is empty, how will you answer? There is no way you can answer it emphatically, right? It's not possible. So this impreciseness, something in between, something partial, that could not be addressed using this classical mathematics. That is why the advent of fuzzy mathematics was all about. Okay. So classical mathematics falls short of addressing such eventualities. Extension of classical mathematics capable of addressing them uh, as a possible solution. Printing mistake. Uh, Fuzzy mathematics is such an extension. Fuzzy mathematics means not only fuzzy and followed by all its derivatives. I mean, rough, then vague, and all this. So extension of classical mathematical ingredients in different directions in respect of set. So the classical, or what is known as crisp set, extended to fuzzy set. Classical logic extended to fuzzy logic. Classical relation extended to fuzzy relation. So all those individual components of classical mathematics got, most of them got fuzzy extension. So fuzzy mathematics has got its own drawbacks. I was trying to draw your kind attention to time and again. Now comes the question, ready to the drawbacks of fuzzy mathematics, higher order fuzzy mathematics, type 2 fuzzy mathematics, for example, or maybe even higher order. Extension of fuzzy sets, set, offset, vague set, combination of such rough fuzzy sets, etc. So that's another avenue you can think of. And third one is hybridization. What exactly is the present the scope of discussion is all about? Just shortcoming of one is to be supplemented by the strength of the other. So this is the philosophy. So something is inadequate to serve the purpose completely, but other component is there. Well, I am going to supplement your drawback. So this is the philosophy. Uh, in a sense, the collaborative performance. Now, the other next component after fuzzy mathematics, then comes the evolutionary computation, primarily used for search and optimization. Mentioned it earlier. The search space associated to an optimization problem is explored, and moving towards an optimum solution in the search space is done in an evolutionary manner. So the manner in which it is done is somewhat evolutionary. So solutions evolve basically. So this is why the terminology is evolutionary computation. Now, naturally, some heuristic is operative corresponding to the evolutionary process. How the evolution takes place. There is classically some form of heuristic is responsible for this. Needless to say, better heuristic provides more efficient evolutionary statistics, and better expected is the outcome or output in terms of quality or maybe in terms of resource utilization, right? May it be time or otherwise. So heuristic may be deterministic. A sample of prospective solutions is picked up. Definitely, efficiency of the heuristic depends on the way samples chosen. So sampling may be done in different ways. So the way samples are chosen has got some bearing on the performance. Then comes probabilistic evolution from one sample to the next is on the basis of some associated probability. So some probabilistic evolution accordingly. Then comes hybrid, collaborative of more than one technique. Uh, that means strength of one is exploited to overcome the weakness of the other. This is the essence of hybridization. Some popular evolutionary strategies, this is just for the sake of quick recapitulation. Simulated annealing, hill climbing. Hill climbing may be of two categories, deterministic and stochastic, then genetic algorithm, particle swarm optimization, and colony optimization. All these are the larger family, evolutionary computation framework. Each method has strengths and limitations. Hybridization may yield better results. Then the third component, artificial neural network, ANN is the most fundamental platform used for machine learning. As has already been indicated, different ANN models for different applications. ANN means artificial neural network, as it stands for. An ANN model is typically characterized by associated parameters. The more appropriate is the choice of parameters, better expected is the performance of the ANN. So the background strength of ANN largely depends upon the appropriate choice of its parameters that controls it. Tuning of parameters may need an evolutionary strategy effective for this purpose. Now try to understand. Well, accepted that it's just to give you a touch. Accepted that good tuning of parameters may lead to efficient performance of ANN. But so far as the tuning of the parameters are concerned, how to do it? So here comes the question. If it is, if some the appropriate choice or suitable choice of parameters may be viewed as an optimization problem. So if this optimization is done by some, say, some heuristic technique, say evolutionary technique or something like that. So what then comes, I mean, these two coupled together, what exactly we are getting? So an ANN framework or ANN model parametrically tuned with respect to its parameters suitably by some appropriate evolutionary strategy. So this is somewhat neurogenetic or neuroevolutionary type of thing that comes up. So I hope you got the answer. Okay, ANN as such is going to work fine, provided the parametric tuning is fine, calibration is fine. But well, then the question comes, who is going to take care of that part, tuning of the parameters? ANN itself cannot. So that is where exactly that is the drawback. If you consider it as a drawback of ANN, it can work fine, provided its parameterization is fine. So who is going to take the responsibility of its parameterization or parametric calibration? So if it's interpreted or it's formulated as an optimization problem, then naturally this optimization can be taken care of by the other component or other part of subcomputing framework. Okay, so this is evolution. So that is why now these two coupled together, what exactly it is? It is neuroevolutionary or neurogenetic type of thing, right? Termination of the ANN upon attaining error below the level of tolerance may also need optimization achieved using effective evolutionary strategy. So termination is yet another big issue. Okay. For achieving or for coming out with a good termination strategy, you may need sometimes the component of other or contribution of other components. Whether tuning of parameters and or proper termination of ANN, use of evolutionary techniques necessitate hybridization. Such methods encompass neuroannealing, neuroswarm, neurogenetic, neuroant accordingly. Right. Now, with all these ingredients discussed so far, coming to hybrid intelligent techniques. Such techniques may encompass collaboration of fuzzy and evolutionary approaches, typically known as, in literature, you may come across fuzz genetic, fuzz simulated annealing or fuzz assay, fuzz PSO, fuzz SEO, etc. So these fuzzy ingredients are coupled during evolution. Collaboration of fuzzy and these are all possible in combination that we can perceive of. Collaboration of fuzzy and artificial neural networks. This is a neuro-fuzzy approach. Parameter setting of the underlying ANN model may involve fuzzy ingredients. So that may be so. Collaboration of evolutionary approach and artificial neural network. The example that very recently I have just discussed. So accordingly, it may be neuro-SA, neuro-PSO, neuro-GA, neuro-SEO, etc. as the case may be. It depends upon which particular optimizer you are using, simulated annealing or genetic algorithm or SEO or PSO or whatever. Optimization associated in ANN functioning may be carried out using evolutionary strategies such as simulated annealing, genetic algorithm, particles one optimization, and colony optimization, etc. Collaboration of fuzzy evolutionary approach and artificial neural network may be fuzzy neurogenetic. So there are three collaboration of all three: fuzzy evolutionary approach and artificial neural network together. Proper coupling. So then there you may have fuzz neurogenetic, fuzz neuroswarm, etc. Some reportings are very much there also in associated literature. So with this background, now we are in a process of the case study that we are basically trying to share today. In fact, the outcome that we had in course of the project execution. The design of an intelligent system for detection of manual gases to avoid human fatality. So this is the scenario, some pictorial representations. So see, human beings are getting in the sewage system, still in practice. Okay, even after Swachh Bharat mission and all that, all these are still prevalent. Now these are the gas components typically one encounters in a sewage system. Hydrogen sulfide, H2S, NH3, carbon monoxide, CO, carbon dioxide, and then CH4, methane. Okay. So these are individual gas components which are frequently found in sewage system, some of which are very, very, very difficult to digest, may cause human fatality. So this is somewhat, as I was indicating, this is somewhat we came up with, maybe a crude one, not exactly a refined one. And because of the subsequent phase of the project was not available, so we could not proceed further. But anyway, this was what we came up with. So some glaring, reportings of fatality or mortality out of this sewage system, sewage system cleansing and for that purpose. A bit backdated, but even then, some of the reportings. For example, in April 4, 2014, in Chennai, there are instances of 4 deaths reported by the Hindu. So that means 4 death instances in Chennai in its April 4, 2014 version, right? So these are some death toll that we come across as being reported. Interestingly, many of the deaths are not reported. This is just what exactly we all are available. But then there are so many others which are not reported as yet. But very interestingly, at least 22,327 persons die in India every year for this purpose while doing this type of job. This is according to reporting by S. Anand appeared on April 4, 2014 in the Hindu. So the figure itself is quite alarming. We must appreciate. Comes the question of why we got motivated. Now, apart from the technical issue, Supreme Court observation of Honorable Supreme Court of India, the state and its agencies, instrumentalities cannot absolve themselves of the responsibility to put in place safety of the workers employed for maintaining and cleaning the sewage system. This is in respect of a judgment to a civil appeal number such and such of 2011. Another judgment, entering sewer lines without safety gears should be made a crime even in emergency. This is against judgment against a civil appeal in 2014. So all these are on the observations of Honorable Supreme Court from time to time. Okay, so this gave us the impetus or objective or motivation in favor of going for this particular project. Now, what exactly were our objectives? Collection and analysis of sewer gas, as a sample, as samples. Sensing the individual gas components in the manual gas mixture. Design an intelligent electronic circuit for detecting the presence of any hazardous gas. Studying and improving the performance, learning algorithms. Okay, so these are our all these come as our objectives. Present. Now, coming to the composition of sewer gas is a complex mixture of toxic and non-toxic gases, some of which we have already seen, produced and collected in sewage systems by the decomposition of organic household or industrial wastes. The major components of sewer gas can include nitrogen, hydrogen sulfide, carbon dioxide, methane, ammonia, maybe carbon monoxide to some extent, biological organisms, water vapor, and other chemicals discharged to the effluent system or effluent stream. Now, coming to the question of what exactly or how much a human system can tolerate. The question of so-called tolerance limit or so-called safety limit that one must be aware of. So this is specifically tested reporting. So far as, for example, CH4 is concerned, that means methane is concerned, the generation process is decomposing hydrocarbon, and the safety limit is in terms of ppm. ppm means particles per millimeter. So ppm, this is less than 10,000. So long it is below 10,000 ppm, it's fine, acceptable. But anything beyond that is dangerous. H2S less than 600, NH3 less than 25, CO less than 40, CO2 less than 10,000. So primarily these individual gas components, they have got their respective safety limits or tolerance limits for human consumption, safety or tolerance for human consumption. Now, coming to the gas analysis system or gas analysis part, there are two conventional methods used for gas analysis. Now, we have to understand them at least a bit. One is gas chromatography method, GC method in short, this one. Then there is chemical analysis. Chemical analysis typically carried out in a chemical laboratory, chemistry laboratory. Okay. Now, in gas chromatography method, from the sample, such drops appear, and there may be some certain appearance of certain peaks. So the first peak is maybe due to just a snapshot, typical snapshot. First peak is because of N2, second one for a CH4, third one for CO2, so on and so forth. Okay. Now, gas chromatography has got its limitations. The biggest limitation is that, let us try to understand. We have a manhole where a person is about to get in. Now, gas chromatography method, if we want to apply there in the field, it's not possible. It may be very, very, accurate, but implementationally infeasible, unfortunately. So gas chromatography as a methodology in this particular scenario is ineffective, unfortunately. Number one. This is primarily because of these associated disadvantages of GC method. Uh, I mean, we are not going into deep into that. These things. After all, GC method has got its disadvantages also, in spite of its strong advantages. Okay? So it's basically ineffective, as has already been indicated in the present context. Now, coming to chemical laboratory is yet another problem. See, in chemical laboratory, you can have a sample, you can chemically analyze it, get to know that what exactly the individual ingredients are there and to what extent. That means what is the composition of the mixture. All these things can be done very well and accurately. But the problem is, you cannot, I mean, it's not possible to bring the chemical laboratory to the near to the manhole for testing. The other alternative is, well, have some sample, collect some sample, bring that sample to the chemical laboratory, analyze it, and then accordingly make your judgment or decision. Now, unfortunately, this is not going to do because of serve your purpose. Why? Because the time it is going to take for bringing, first of all, collecting, then packaging, then bringing it to the chemical laboratory, analyzing it, um, having the report, it is going to be so much time consuming that by that time the chemical composition of that particular manhole where from the sample was collected must have undergone huge change in the composition. So if the chemical analysis report of the chemical analysis is positive, it might be negative by that time, or if it was originally negative, it might have turned positive by that time. So in a sense, chemical analysis, however accurate it may be, it's once again inoperative or inappropriate in this type of a problem. So what exactly, where exactly we are standing? We have to go for such a mechanism which can be used for the purpose of testing in the site itself, there itself. So that is what exactly we want. Okay. Now, here exactly what we are trying to get into the problem. So what we do is basically make our collection, uh, preserve it in our balloon, in a balloon or balloon-like structure for subsequent analysis. This is what we are calling about the learning phase. We shall discuss in details later on. For testing and validation, they may be used subsequently. But idea is that just imagine we are having a sort of device, the picture of which has already been shown. There is an internal circuit. After all, the problem in the present context we are trying to perceive as a pattern recognition problem because a particular or typical combination of gases, individual gas components, they yield a particular pattern. What we try to do is that to get hold of what exactly pattern is being generated of the sample at a particular point of time and trying to get exactly which composition of individual gas components may lead to this type of pattern or might have generated this pattern. Try to get hold of that. And if we are able to do that, then it's rather a pattern recognition problem than chemical or chromatography or some other problems prevalent. And moreover, if this particular type of pattern recognition problem can be effectively done, they may be thought of being embedded inside a particular circuit, giving rise to a sort of a circuit followed by usual packaging, giving rise to a sort of device-like structure, and that device is capable of. Our intention is to develop that type of a device which can be dipped inside before before a human being is going to enter a sewage system, and this particular device will indicate whether it's the right moment to get in or not. Okay, so this is exactly what we are trying to do. Now, I mean, Jadavpur University, in course of our discussion, our effort, Jadavpur Scientific Research Laboratory, which is in CGCRI, Jadavpur. We had some part of our investigation over there. So we came out with some different samples were collected, and some of the results are indicated here, just to give you some idea. Like the gas chromatographic method, chemical analysis but also its limitation. So here exactly the alternative solution that we are seeking of. To overcome the problems of GC and chemical analysis method, we have explained it already. Maybe for a quick understanding. We have designed an electronic gadget or device which is able to detect the presence of any hazardous gas inside the membrane. If the presence of the gas is very low, then the toxic limit or safety limit or tolerance limit, so it will be made known by green LED, near to toxic level yellow LED. This is how we thought of our design to be. Then above toxic level, red LED, along with a buzzer. That means generating alarm. The gadget has two basic parts. One is sensor array and then data acquisition system, or DAS in short. So this is the schematic diagram, okay, where the gas mixture from the left to the right movement takes place. So the gas mixture collected is being fed to the system. Then there are sensor array, with each and every individual sensor being responsible for sensing individual gas components present in the mixture. Then after sensing this sensed result is fed into the data acquisition system or DAS. Well, then this blue part, which is your basically your intelligent system, is the electronic hardware we are trying to develop. It does its role, or it plays its role, does its serves its purpose, and eventually reporting it. This is the flow of activities. We shall see that the sensor array, coming to the sensor array part, the number of sensors, each and every individual sensor is responsible for sensing individual gas components, as I have already indicated. But the issue of cost sensitivity is there, and that is creating a problem. We shall see in due course of time, where, say for example, H2S sensors senses carbon monoxide to some extent. Okay. Maybe so methane sensor senses H2SS to some extent. But this is some sort of an overactivism in the sense that a particular sensor earmarked for sensing a particular gas is not only doing its own role or serving its own purpose, but at the same time it is sensing some other gas components, even maybe to a small extent, but somewhat. So where exactly the problem is? Whenever you are trying to do something, you are not, you get confused as to which particular contribution is from which particular sensor. So the proportion of sensing or the results coming there out they may be, you know, they may suffer from some, you know, some noise effect because of cost sensitivity, so-called cost sensitivity. And accordingly, there may be misleading interpretation also. That is the problem of concern, right? So this is how this is a sort of a very, you know, context level diagram, schematic diagram of exactly how the system works. It's understandable. In fact, that's precisely what is going to work. Okay. Now these are the individual sensors that those were used for this purpose. Yes, in our gas sensor array. So these are specifications. For methane, it's MP4. For different type of gases, different type of sensors we used. So they are there. Now this is the data acquisition system that we had, the DAs that we developed in the laboratory. So it's like this. Okay. So when it was the question of embedding it on a board, so it looks like this. So the individual specifications all are there written over. I'm not going into the details, individual details of that. Okay. Should we have a break, by the way? Maybe 10 minutes break?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I
We can
think
take a
this
break.
is the time where we can stop for a while. Maybe
Yes, sir.
we have 10 minutes break and then come back.
Yes, sir. Sure, sir.
Is it all right with
So,
everybody?
yes, yes. So, all the participants, we are taking a short break of 10 minutes. And in this COVID crisis, please help yourself to have some tea or water or something, and then please come back. Thank you very much. So,
Thank you.
after 10 minutes, we will again join back. Welcome back, sir.
Thank you. So participants, they're all.
Yes, sir.
They
They are also connected, sir.
So there are certain questions. Should we address them first?
Yeah, Sri Purna ma'am will take the. Yes, sir. If you feel that if you take the questions now, then we can take the questions now.
I think some questions let us take because.
Yes, sir. Okay, Sri Purna ma'am, please go ahead with the questions.
Okay, sir. The first question has been asked by Mr. Pushpen Lahiri. The question is like tuning of ANN parameters, choosing of proper activation function is also another issue. Is there any?
Just a moment, please wait.
Yes, yes, sir, yes, sir.
Yeah, please. Can you repeat, please?
Yes,
Can
sir.
you please repeat? Yeah.
Yes, sir. Obviously, sir. Am I here audible, sir?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes, sir. The first question is that like tuning of ANN parameters, choosing of proper activation function is also another issue. Is there any unique solution for selecting of proper activation function?
Good question. Very good question. Activation function or choice of activation function, appropriate activation function, is definitely going to tail upon the performance of the artificial neural network. Choice of your activation function to some extent is very much, context sensitive, in the sense that the particular problem that you are handling, that it has got its bearing. Maybe for a particular problem, suppose tan hyperbolic activation function may be appropriate. In some other context, maybe threshold logic unit, TLU may be appropriate, or so on and so forth. So it depends upon which particular context you are trying to use your artificial neural network model for a specific purpose. So in that sense, or in that way, context sensitive or context specific. And designing a particular, or generalized, better to say, generalized or generic type of artificial neural network, sorry, activation function choice for a particular artificial neural network may not be very much possible using some, say, evolutionary technique or something like that. So when it's a question of parameterization, truly speaking, there should not be any misunderstanding. We have kept this activation function or choice of the activation functions outside the purview of parameter tuning, to be honest, because because of the reason I have mentioned, that it is a question of context of data that you are handling. Next question, please.
Okay, sir. Next question has been asked by Antara Sengupta. The question is biological waste can be channelized to be recycled.
I'm sorry, please repeat.
Actually, the question is, can that biological waste can be channelized to be recycled to something else? Biological waste can be recycled.
Biological waste. So you mean to say possibly, if I would understand properly, you are thinking about some biological system in which a biological waste type of thing is, or items are there, and application of this particular problem, application of artificial neural network or something like that for that problem. So is it so?
Actually, the question has been asked by Antara Sengupta. So I think that what she means, that whether it can be recycled.
I mean, possibly without understanding the actual context or specific, domain specific knowledge, it's very difficult to answer. Anyway, if she is not there, we may take this up later on. Okay.
Actually, I think also this question does not fall into the ANN category also, artificial neural
not
network.
Exactly, not exactly.
Basically.
It may so happen that for a particular problem, or problem of that nature, where someone wants to think of using ANN for its purpose. Some notion or some knowledge of ANN may be there. Possibly, exactly, she's trying to get into that. I'm not sure. Okay, let's not get into it without understanding the questions.
Yes, sir. Okay, the first question that was about the activation function. The same person, Mr. Pushpendra, has asked another question on that same context actually. So that he is asking that, so sir, is activation function selection is dependent on problem or model dependent?
Largely on problem. Largely on the problem, because as I have indicated that depending upon the nature of problem that you want to handle, your choice of your activation function may differ from one particular problem to another particular problem. So it's largely on the problem domain that is important.
Right.
But what is important is that given that particular activation model has been chosen, your question is somewhat got some deeper meaning also. Excuse me. In the sense that, suppose for a given problem you have chosen your, say for example, sigmoidal activation function, for example. Now the question may come that, well, given that sigmoidal activation function has been picked up for a purpose, for a specific purpose, what should be the parametric tuning of tuning of the underlying parameters of the activation function, so the bias and other skill parameters, etc. So then exactly the question of your optimization related issues come. So you can think it in two terms or two phases, in the sense that choice of your activation function out of its family, it depends largely on the nature of problem that you are handling, number one. And once you have picked up your correct choice of activation function, then comes the question of the tuning of the underlying parameters of that activation function chosen. So that is the second phase.
Yes, sir, definitely, sir. So that's three questions we have till now. We haven't got any other question.
That's fine, but there are other persons in the chat also. Is there any question or technical? Just question.
No, sir. There are no such question. There are about the where they are going to get the quiz to get the certificate, that type of thing they have.
Separate. I mean,
no, there are no such questions.
Anything technical?
No, sir. No technical question is not.
Okay.
No. Till now, there is no such technical question. Is that should bother you? There is no such question.
Okay. So may I proceed then?
Yes, sir. Definitely, sir.
Shall I have to reload it or what?
No, so you have to just click on the share screen option.
Okay.
Yes, sir. It started. Yes, sir. It's shown.
So I'm
Mr.
starting then. I'm starting.
Yes. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
So now, after all whatever we have discussed so far, now the stage is set for gas mixture analysis system in laboratory. Okay? So it's basically our experimental setup that we are going to discuss now. So it's a portable test setup and gas mixture analysis system. So some of the snapshots was in course of the execution of the project, which I'm not exactly going to discuss as such. I mean, the electronic circuitry part is not that important or not exactly the cup of tea for the present discussion also. So, I mean, part of which, part of this was developed during some visit of the appropriate funding team. Okay, so all these things, all these ingredients are put in. So let's not going into that. This is exactly once again the schematic diagram in the mixture setup. I mean, in the laboratory. somewhat a schematic diagram. So I'm not going to the, and just to have some idea about exactly what was going on over those time. No, let's not get into that also. Yeah. So the issue of cost sensitivity is what is important, which I shall try to address now. So, for example, there are 5 sensors. So, for example, methane, carbon monoxide, carbon dioxide, hydrogen sulfide, and say NH3 or ammonia, right? So we have tested or tried to carry out our test using LPG. So what ideal result should be? An ideal sensor should not respond any other gas except the target gas. By target gas, what we mean that exactly the sensor is earmarked for. As the sensor is prone to cross sensitivity, that is exactly the source of your irritation. Unfortunately, our experience suggests that in fact developing or trying to get hold of an intelligent system, but the problem of this cross sensitivity is a very difficult issue. Result: the card shows that all the sensors are sensing the LPG gas. Interestingly, but the sensor resistance of CH4 sensor changes maximum. So you can get somewhat exactly depending upon the nature of sensitivity being indicated what exactly or which sensor it is for. That you can get some idea of. But the question then others are also contributing. You cannot get rid of that. Okay, it's not exactly positive from your point of view. Excuse me. Now, in fact, this cross sensitivity issue itself is a big problem for you. Now, to get some idea about the behavior of cross sensitivity behavior, for example, along the vertical, you have got your sensor, you have got your gases or target gas, and vis-a-vis along the horizontal, you have got the sensors earmarked. So, say for example, contribution-wise, we have observed is a typical scenario. Say H2S sensor is sensing H2S gas component 0.98, the scale of 1. That means 98%, for example. Okay, so I mean, it's no doubt that H2S sensor is sensing H2S to a large extent, but unfortunately, it is also sensing CO2 to some extent, or maybe others also like this. So this is exactly what cost sensitivity scenario indicates, and this is because of this the trouble begins. Because if you want to now try to understand, let's try to motivate you. If the scenario would have been ideal, that means the particular sensor sensing the exact target gas and nothing else, had this been the scenario, your life would have been easier. But unfortunately, it is not so. And what is even more difficult, you have got no idea, at least there is no literature available to, no reporting available to the literature where exactly how much sensing is done for some other gas by a particular sensor. No such literature is available. So that created some problem with our investigation effort, right? But nevertheless, with thorough experimentation and getting results thereof, we could come out of something. But honestly speaking, it needs some more fine tuning and calibration. In fact, the end results, that is why the end results have got certain limitations also. Coming to intelligent approaches, that is basically our purview of investigating or study. So there are statistical approach based on ideal gas behavior based approach. So what would have been had it been the ideal gas behavior scenario prevalent? So statistical approach is based on that. Unfortunately, reality is not like that. And well, then there is noise filtering approach, where non-hybrid approach, there are two broad classifications. One is non-hybrid approach, three-layered backpropagation neural network, or again called backpropagation neural network approach. Conjugate, then there is conjugate gradient-based three-layered NN training, what is known as CGNN algorithm. So these are different algorithms we have used in case of non-hybrid approach. So purely non-hybrid because purely neural network models we have used. Then there is a sort of neurohybrid approach. Neurohybrid in the sense that hybrid approach with one component being definitely neural network and other component being supplemented by some other. So, for example, genetically trained neural network, particle swarm optimization trained neural network, multi-agent concurrent simulated annealing trained neural network. So the training part of the neural network is done by something else, some other component. Okay. So continuous and colony optimization trained neural network. So these are different neurohybrid approaches came under the scope of noise filtering approach. Then there is a third broad classification, which is binary classification based approach. The training of various classifiers for a labeled data set. A labeled data set means data set of the present context. So coming to the data collection process, it is back. Coming to the data collection process, safety limits of hazardous gases in manhole were noted. The biggest problem that we faced in those days is that the inadequacy of literature, available literature. There was hardly any literature support that we had. So that way it was a very little we could go by. So the entire effort was aimed at that, and the entire effort we had to put in some big amount of effort we had to put in for that also. Several samples of gas mixture is known in known concentration were prepared by considering the concentration of gases which should vary around their safety limit. So the intention was to study the nature or behavior. As I have indicated that there was hardly any literature support at the time. Each mixture sample is passed over the surface of semiconductor-based GSA and their behavior were noted. Sensors behavior from data sheets of sensors were noted. Data samples were prepared based on all the collected information in a tabular form. So this is the data collection formality that we have discussed here. The progress is a chronology. So step by step. So as if we are moving top to the stairs, so the primary approach followed by sophisticated approach, then simplified approach, and that way we try to frame our planning. Okay. Coming to statistical approach, which was otherwise the first one. As I have mentioned, is the ideal scenario perception. So all the 5 gas components were considered: H2S, CO2, H4, NH3, and CO. This is the specimen of data sample. So given those gas mixtures, the sensors response were recorded like this, on the right hand side. Okay. And these sensors response exactly was, these responses were our data. So here's a cause effect type of relationship where gas mixture concentration in ppm was the independent variable, and corresponding to that the sensor response was the dependent variable. So it was some sort of a y equal to fx type of relationship that is prevalent there as perceived, where x is your concentration in ppm, and you may perceive that y, that means y equal to fx, y is your corresponding response, and f is unknown. So whenever f is unknown, the question of getting an idea about f, it's what is basically the scope of regression, statistical regression, and that precisely we have done. Coming to data for noise filtering approach, the other approach, these are basically the format of data that we have tried to develop for the purpose of different experimentation. Now coming to noise filtering approach, we equipped our data in this way, where it's a mixture of gases, or components of different gases in the mixture. These are used for the output of the artificial neural network. It's a training phase that we are talking about, where the classical regression used in statistical regression analysis gets replaced by the artificial neural network as an approximation mechanism to have something where the noise component is trying to be reduced, as happens in case of a artificial neural network. That means the accumulated noise, the output layer is minimized, and accordingly for achieving the minimization, accordingly the the individual weight distribution is calibrated accordingly to get hold of the best possible weight distribution, and that is what the training is all about. So that is precisely what is practiced here also. Then the third, data for classification approach, binary classification approach. This is the data that we frame for that purpose. Okay. So these are the three different type of data we have developed for the purpose of different approaches, and accordingly we went on our experiment on the basis of that. Okay. Now let us just discuss them. So after how the different data are prepared. Now it's the question of some discussion on individual approaches. The statistical approach here, this square estimation approach is taken or considered, where the regression, it's basically regression, and the solution that we have, or estimated solution that we have, is purely based on this square estimation. In fact, the results are shown in the tabulated manner, where beta hat, representation wise, beta hat is your unknown distribution or unknown parametric, unknown estimated parameter value. X is your explanatory variable. Explanatory variable means the variables or the data that you use that is available in terms of cost sensitivity matrix that is there. Here I must mention that cost sensitivity matrix is not exactly available in the literature as it is, as I have mentioned. So the cost sensitivity matrix could be developed by ourselves through thorough and intensive experimentation. Okay, so the question may be there that, well, the cost sensitivity matrix that is being used here, how much valid it is. The question of validation is very much there, we admit, but well, then there is no ground truth as such available in the literature to this effect. Okay? So we have to bear this particular issue also. Well, then why here is your observable data? That means the gas mixture input in this context. Now, accordingly, the proportion, accordingly the sensor, on the basis of the sensor response, the proportion that could come out looks like the proportion of percentage as presented in the table. is exactly the way this square estimation technique was adapted, and uh, the results obtained there. It's a linear regression that we carried out, simple statistical regression. Then comes non-hybrid approach. Okay. So let me go back some. Yeah. So the number one is we have discussed somewhat. Next comes the noise filtering approach, and out of this noise, among this noise filtering approach, the non-hybrid component we are discussing now. So the network training pattern. So I mentioned that it's basically a pattern recognition problem that we are pursuing the present problem of. So accordingly, when the question of training of the network, the training of the pattern. So our input vector sensor responses are the input to the system. So what exactly the mapping is? The sensor responses are input to the system. Thus, input vector is basically nothing but a sort of a vector, or vector in suitable order, of course, formed from the sensor responses. Okay. Well, then there is another component which is the target vector, reporting concentration of gases present in the given gas mixture in the system output. Thus, target vector is yet another vector represented by T. So there are two vectors as such. One is I, the other is T. I is the input vector, T is the target vector. Right? So when it comes to the question of training of the network, these two vectors are going to play their role. This is the simple network architecture, artificial neural network architecture, with three layers: input layer, then there is output layer, and then in between there is hidden layer. So input node that hold input value but do not perform any computation. Output neural, so far as output is concerned, represented by OIs, so neural node, and these links in between, they are basically synaptic links. But all these are very well known, concepts in artificial neural network. There is nothing very, unique as such so far. Only thing, the particular different type of artificial neural network models, existing models are being used for this particular purpose. Now, going to the backpropagation algorithm, the question of how this particular artificial neural network works, based on which type of algorithm. So, it's the background. In the background is the backpropagation algorithm that works. A neural network is a massively parallel distributed processor combination that has a natural propensity for storing experimental knowledge and subsequently making it available to us. Okay. So when in use, the backpropagation algorithm is a form of supervised learning of multi-layered neural network. We all know it. Error at the output layer, error or noise, as we called, error at the output layer is backpropagated to earlier ones, thereby adjusting the distribution weight distribution. So this is the flow of the present, present type of algorithm that is under consideration. Now, according to this particular model was put to use two modes. One is the batch, and the other is the sequential. Where along the horizontal axis, the number of iterations is indicated, and along the vertical axis, the average MAC is reported, right? So accordingly, we are getting the two forms of outputs. Okay. Blue being the resultant of batch processing, the contrary, the red one representing the sequential result of the sequential realization. Now we are trying to explore different possibilities so far as network configurations. Excuse me. So this, for example, this 525 or 545. Look at the left-hand figure. This 525 or 545. What exactly they represent? So 525 means there are 5 input nodes in the input layer, 2 hidden nodes, 2 nodes in the hidden layer, and 5 nodes in the output layer. So 525 means this is a 3-layer architecture with 5 nodes in the input layer, 2 nodes in the hidden layer, followed by 5 nodes in the output layer. Similarly, 545, 565, so on and so forth. So it means that so far as number of input nodes and number of output nodes in the input layer and the output layer respectively are concerned, they have been kept fixed, 5 each, right? Only the hidden layer where you can carry out your flexibility, you may have your flexibility and try to get exactly which particular combination is going to give you the best results. So accordingly, there were experimentation, and what we get that the minimum reported by the more or less by the green one. So green one means 545. So 545 came out with an effective one for this purpose. So that means 5 nodes, 5 input nodes, 4 hidden nodes, and 4 nodes in the hidden layer, and 5 output sort of thing. Okay, and when it comes to the question of bar diagrammatic representation represented in the right hand side, so the 515 is reporting this much, so average MSE, which is quite high, and interestingly 555 is giving you the minimum one. So it's very much either you have to go for 555 or 545. These are quite close to one another for me. Sometimes 555 is doing better, sometimes 545 is doing better. So this is the scenario. So you are getting some idea as to how many number of nodes you need to accommodate so far as this particular experiment is concerned. Okay, so this is this analysis. So this is another, analysis where the average analysis vis-a-vis the iterations along the horizontal axis and average MSE along the vertical axis. They're they're under observation, and this is the situation that you get. Okay, so this is regarding the search space. So this is regarding the search space. That means here also we are trying to get as to in which context and for which combination the average MSE, which should be as minimum as possible, we are getting. Okay, so this is also some idea we are getting out of these graphs also, graphical representations also. Learning rate and momentum. So once again, please note that average MSE all along happens to be our performance metric that we have considered. So here the number of iterations versus average MSE. So here also we are getting some idea. Okay, so so this is number of iterations top left. This is number of iterations versus average MSE. Say top right, this is the learning rate versus average MSE. That means how should we tune our learning rate? Top right, for example, momentum factor versus average MSE. That means what should be our momentum factor that we may think of. So that way, right? Training volume is there are two competitors in terms of training volume. One is regulated training set with regulated network configuration and fixed iteration. marked by red, and marked by blue is regulated training set with regulated iteration and node in hidden layer. So if average MSE is to be considered, we see that the blue one, that means regulated training set with regulated iteration and node in hidden layer, it outperforms the red counterpart. Okay. Well, then there is another investigation that we carried out, the conjugate gradient, or CG in short, algorithm, instead of this backpropagation one. So you try to understand. Ultimately, your weights are to be adjusted. It's backpropagation, the neural network weight. One is definitely the backpropagation algorithm that we have used, and its performance were studied. Now it is conjugate gradient, another algorithm that was put in use, and we carried out our study on the basis of that. So CG is a second order minimization method, first of all. Unlike BP, in CG, the gradient corresponding to the current state stays perpendicular to the direction of all previous states. CG or conjugate gradient is a well-known algorithm. We are not exactly going into that one. Rather, what results we are getting that is important to us for the present. Each step in CG is at least as good as the steepest descent from the same point. Such a series of steps are non-interfering, so that the minimization performed in one step will not be partially undone in the next. So, sort of legacy stays, right? And this is what is being reported. So, Gordon has reported all this studies in his thesis. Accordingly, this is marked as proposed in thesis. So, this is used by using a conjugate gradient algorithm for this purpose. So just see the reporting, the MSc reported. So it's the smallest one being. First of all, there is one question of the time. This is MSc. It's very interesting to study to note. MSc may be one point definitely, but at the same time is yet another important factor. For example, see, what may happen is that if MSc is considered individually, it may be very much effective for some CG specific CG method, but it may not work that much impressively in respect of time. And if time is considered, MSc may be compromised. So it's sort of a trade-off type of thing that comes up. So MSc versus time, where both the ends are being met together. So that type of a scenario. It's a sort of a multi-criterion scenario that need to be addressed together. After the non-hybrid one, this is the neurohybrid approach that we are discussing now. So in this particular aspect, there are neurogenetic approach. The representational issue, I'm not going deep into that. Okay, so how things were implemented. What is more important is the results that we obtain. So, in respect of neural network configuration, population size, mutation rate, iterations, crossover rate, search space. So it's a neurogenetic. Please note, neurogenetic means the neural network is the parameters of the neural network model is being tuned or optimized using genetic algorithm or genetic algorithmic structures. Okay, so when it comes to the question of, so there are two factors. One is the neural network part, the other is the genetic algorithm part. So far as neural network part is concerned, neural network configuration and population size, neural network configuration is definitely what you try to study. But well, then the population size, mutation rate, and other things, they are very much the part of concern in respect of genetic optimizers, right? So these are the reportings that we observed in where considering average MSE as our performance metric eventually. Okay, for example, just for the sake of some understanding, say for example, which particular mutation rate is going to yield you the minimum average MSE. That means which particular mutation rate we should choose or we should fix. So the right hand top right is going to give some clue or provide some clue. Similarly, the crossover rate. So all these combinations are discussed, I mean, investigated in details, and accordingly, the studies or reporting are being reported here. In course of the thesis report, I distinctly remember there was one question which is technically very important, but it is not addressed here. I'm not sure whether any one of the listeners have put up this question or has come up in their mind. The question is that, well, accepted that population size, mutation rate, crossover rate, so on and so forth, so different parameters are there. And we pick up each and every individual parameter, individually. That means mutation rate individually, crossover rate individually, so on and so forth. But the question that was raised is a very interesting one. Let me share. Is there any guarantee that the choice of your mutation rate has got nothing to do with other parameters? Say, for example, population size, or maybe your population size has got some bearing with respect of your choice of crossover rate. So the question is whether these parameters, which are considered individually in respect of their respective performances, is it that they can behave independently of one another, or maybe one is having some impact on the other. So if the second one is true, then it's somewhat an inconclusive study that we had so far. But well, then there is no tangible answer to the question as yet, because the internal functioning, how exactly the hybrid system is going to work, is not exactly visible to us as yet, and for that matter, it is difficult to ascertain. To the best of our knowledge, there is no mechanism by which this internal insight can be had. Okay, so that question still remains unanswered as such, except the fact that if that be so, then there is some sort of simultaneous optimization issue comes up. So it's a separate domain altogether to investigate, which is not there right now. Coming to neuroswarm approach, this is proposed to train neural network using particle swarm optimization. That means the optimizer gets changed. Okay, where particle swarm optimization is used instead of the earlier optimizer that we used previous to this. So particle swarm optimization is search algorithm inspired by the behavior of swarm. This is the background of particle swarm optimization. Eventually, the swarm as a whole, like a flock of birds collectively foraging for food, is likely to move those to an optimum in respect of the fitness function. So here also the fitness function is very much applicable, like genetic algorithm, but the structure of the fitness function, its operability or functionality will be different from that of the genetic algorithm. So this is used in automatic modification of particle movement. So the particle movement is governed by automatic modification. So this is exactly is the power of particle swarm optimization as a technique, optimization technique. Now here also some investigation, some study that we carried out. So it's a neuroswarm. So naturally, the underlying parameters comprise neural network configuration, population size, well, the number of iterations, social and global cognitive factors is part of swarm optimization scenario. Then search space aspect, so on and so forth. So here also, the same question is very much there. The performance study has been carried out individual parameter wise. What about if one has got any impact over the other? Question remains unanswered. Coming to neuro-assay or neuro-simulated handling approach, another simulated handling happens to be yet another optimization approach. Accordingly, there will be neuro-assay approach that cropped up and we investigated. So we proposed to train neural network using simulated handling or assay. A sequential assay and a concurrent assay were proposed. So there are two variants of assay, a sequential one and a concurrent one. Both were applied. A multi-agent concurrent assay was also proposed. So in fact, different forms of assay were put into use and parameters were optimized to identify the best among the alternatives. Okay. So similarly, apart from neuroassay, there is new ant colony optimization was also used. So neuro ant approach accordingly was devised. I think there was a some gaps corresponding to neuroassay approach. Somehow it is missing. I'm sorry, right now I cannot share it. Somehow it is missing. So I may please be excused. So coming to neuro ant approach, where the ant colony optimization technique was used as an optimizer. Accordingly, a new selection strategy named Bernoulli heterogeneous selection was proposed in case of SEO, and we used different distance metrics for this purpose, and parameters were optimized to get hold of the best neural network model accordingly. So the result of neuro ant performance, where iteration versus MSE, neural network configuration versus MSE, archive size versus MSE, search space versus MSE, all these things were considered once again individually, parameter wise, rather than together. Okay, so that question may be investigated further. Now, this selection strategy, some discussion about the selection strategy. In fact, this particular selection strategy, Bernoulli heterogeneous selection. So it's some detailing about that. We are not exactly going into that. Coming to this different types of various, point number 4, various distance metrics were evaluated and used. So this is the report. So in course of our study, we considered Minkowski's distance, Manhattan distance, Euclidean distance, Minkowski's distance for different choice of R. Okay. Then Chebyshev, Bray-Curtis, so on and so forth. So different type of distance metrics were used and corresponding average MSE were reported. And interestingly, we see that the Manhattan distance came out victorious out of all the choices. So in terms of choice of distance metric, Manhattan distance could be chosen. But once again, if the question is asked or question is raised whether Manhattan distance still is going to perform best with different combination of parameters uniformly, it's very difficult to answer. Okay, because we didn't carry out all possible studies with all possible combinations. It's not possible also. So then the comparison of algorithms, different algorithms that we have considered. So this is what exactly we have come out with. With reporting of different MSE and the corresponding neural network configuration specification. Whereas BPNN suggests 535, that means 5 number of nodes in input layer, 3 number of nodes in hidden layer, 5 number of nodes in output layer, with reported MSE like this 0.0062. CGNN suggests 545. CNSA suggests 525, Neurogenetic 545, Neuroswan 535, and Colony Optimization 535 with their respective MSE or mean square error reporting. Okay, so uh, now naturally SEO star, which is the last one, in terms of MSE performance gives you the best one, the minimum MSE. With population size being 40. So needless to say, if you have this number of population, that means your population size is smaller. In terms of computational overhead, you are also gaining. So that way, that we came out with the inference that out of all the algorithms that we use for this purpose, cardinalization and colony optimization or and colony optimization performed the best. That was the best fit so far as coupling with the neural network system was concerned for the present purpose, present problem. So this is just this one. Complexity analysis, that means computational overhead wise. So these are the time complexity, this is the space complexity that is pointed out. Here also encoding optimization has got some advantage. Please note that this is, as I have indicated, this is because of the population size being a smaller one. So it has got its own intrinsic advantage in respect of that. Computation time wise, neurogenetic is the worst performer, unfortunately. And once again, and colony optimization is the best performer. Computation time wise. Now, comparison of algorithms in respect of statistical differences. Okay, so let me. I need to make an explanation before I discuss this. See, suppose we are considering two numbers, 1 and 2. So definitely 2 is greater than 1, and 2 is greater than 1 can be interpreted in different ways. 2 is 2 times greater than 1 is one way of interpretation. 2 is 1 more than 1 is another way of interpretation. Okay. Now, considering this one more, it may have different connotations altogether. See, out of the two, the 100 and 101, two numbers. So once again, 101 is 1 more than 100. So similar, that 2 is 1 more than 1. The question, are these two situations similar, statistically speaking? Answer is no. Why? Because out of this combination 100 versus 101, the percentage by which 101 is more than 100 is extremely insignificant compared to the other scenario. So this statistical significance or statistical insignificance in respect of the difference, absolute difference being reported, is important. That is why, suppose there are two algorithms being investigated. Coming to this point, one is reporting the time consumption of 100 units. The other one is reporting the time consumption of 101 units. Now, if it is asked, well, out of these two algorithms, in terms of time, is the one consuming 100 unit of time outperforms the other one consuming 101 unit of time? It's very difficult because the time consumption, even though it is smaller, but it is not significant perhaps. But if the same question is asked where a particular algorithm is consuming say 1 unit of time, vis-a-vis another algorithm is consuming 2 units of time for doing the same purpose, if now the question is asked like this, whether the algorithm that is consuming 1 unit of time, is it better compared to the other, which is consuming otherwise 2 units of time? you are definitely without any hesitation say definitely, because it's taking some amount of time. So it's statistically significant. So the question of statistical significance, even though indicating some difference, makes some role to play. So that is what we are trying to discuss now. When the difference, I mean, statistical, I mean, in respect of the differences reported, whether they are statistically significant or not, in respect of um, different type of optimizers used, that we have investigated. And there is a corresponding non-parametric statistical test for that, known as KS test, which is Kolmogorov-Smirnov test. Okay, and we are not exactly going into the details of Kolmogorov-Smirnov test, statistical test. It is not exactly precisely what we want, but the result is important. That means the decision. That means what is presented in the last line. So the decision says that if X is my n colony optimization and other is the result obtained by some other technique is Y, so we are basically comparing between X and Y. Why X and Y? Because ant colony optimization has played all along the best role. The question is now, accepted that ant colony optimization has performed the best. The question next comes whether the ant colony optimization uh, has performed better, statistically significant enough or not. That is the question. So here is the answer. So when it comes to the question of decision with back propagation, the decision is X equivalent to Y, equivalence in statistical significance sense. That means ant colony optimization and back propagation algorithm as optimizers, they are statistically indistinguishable. Interesting. Coming to the comparison with CGNN, indistinguishable. Coming to PSO, X outperform, I mean, X is more than, statistically more than Y. Okay. With respect to SA, X is statistically more than Y. With respect to GA, statistically more than Y. That means in terms of performance, SEO outperforms PSO simulated annealing, particle swarm optimization, simulated annealing, and genetic algorithm quite statistically significant. No doubt about it. But is there any statistical significance when the comparison is done with back propagation or CGNN? Answer is unfortunately no. They maintain supremacy numerically, but not statistically significant. uh, I think this is just the implementation of details. That means you need some sort of normalization while implementing the neural network to work. So I am not exactly going into the details of this discussion because it will take another hell lot of time. It's not exactly that what we want. Rather, the results we get is being reported here. Okay, so that is important. So see, some interesting reports are coming. What is systems output vis-a-vis actual concentration in ppm? So, for example, the last one, 5, corresponding to serial number 5. If you have network node number 5, then the system's output in ppm, last two columns, just concerned, 4965 versus 5000. Okay, so quite close. It's like this. The last approach, that is the classification approach. Okay, the classification approach is simplified gas detection problem as binary classification problem. So it's the entire problem of gas detection is perceived as a as a binary classification problem. So four family of classification algorithms were tested. A total 14 classifiers were evaluated. A total 7 ensemble methods were evaluated. Performance of algorithms were compared. So very quickly, let us. So these are the different type of classifiers used of different categories, and these are the corresponding reportings in respect of accuracy, and this is the standard deviation. So the last two columns indicate the respective performances of different type of classifiers under consideration. And among these, so many, this is 14 many classifiers uh, coming under the purview of this category. So this is the result. Once again, the results pertaining to statistical significance. What exactly they come, all these comparative, what is the comparison among these, classifiers among themselves. So this is what exactly it indicates. So this is the thorough study that we have carried out. So practically we are at the fag end after all these discussions. We are trying to conclude. The proposed system provides a solution to multiple gas detection issues. Okay, so it's the gas detection issue, interpreted from a pattern recognition as a pattern recognition problem. Uh, we could get some idea about, uh, you know, technically which combination should be the one we can think of. Okay? And accordingly, we have, you know, we have applied it or embedded it in our device, and uh, the device started working. May not be very efficiently, must admit, but some results it was giving. Uh, Cost sensitivity is an issue, could not be sorted out to the fullest extent, and in fact, our experience suggests that cost sensitivity is the main culprit, unfortunately. Three distinct solutions to gas detection were proposed. Statistical approach was found dependent on ideal behavior of gas sensor. So it's an idealistic assumption on which it works. So it has got its limitations accordingly. Rigorously trained neural network was found filtering cross sensitivity noise of sensors. Classification-based approach offered most simplified approach, providing a binary answer. Binary in the sense, in the sense yes or no, good or bad. So these are some of the publications that came out. Uh, okay, thank you for all your cooperation and patient hearing. Thank you very much all. That's all.
Thank you so much, sir, for your session. In this session, we have learned about not only different types of hybrid intelligence techniques, but also the different the results, how to display different results, how to uh, show that how to write a paper. Also, the participants should have learned that how to write the papers while giving the different comparisons between different algorithms and what could be the parameters to compare different algorithms. That was I think that was the highlight of this particular session that I for myself loved the most. That is how to write a paper in that sense, how to write a research paper, technical paper from eminent personality like you that has been taught to us. So
Thank you
thank you,
very much.
sir.
Thank
Thank
you
you,
very
sir.
much for your encouragement. Okay.
I am no one to encourage you, sir. You are encouraging all of us. But I personally love you, like that things that how the different parameters have been taken into consideration for different algorithms and how they have compared that thing. So I would request the participants to write down your questions in the question answer session. As we will be moving towards the question answer session, we have got few questions, but it will be great as the sir is with us to clear your doubts regarding different hybrid intelligence techniques and how to compare them based on different parameters of different algorithms. That will be Great. If or you can ask any other type of question, any technical questions to
Uh,
him.
I
So
think there are some questions maybe
yes,
there.
yes, 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 yes. So that will come. Yes,
Yeah,
sir. That
sure.
I am coming. Okay. So the Deepak Kumar Ghosh has asked in the backpropagation algorithm how researchers have chosen the number of hidden nodes. Is there any optimized method available?
Uh, uh, as such, there is no guideline, to be honest. At least not that I know of. In fact, that is the reason why, so far as our problem goes, we have conducted with different type of configuration, network configurations, bearing different number of nodes in the hidden layer. So 525, 515, 535, all these things, this 1, 2, 3 in between, all these, all these efforts were put in order to get an idea as to which could be a possible good choice in different contexts. Um, in fact, there is no, as such, theoretically or otherwise, even empirically established result, once again, that I know of at least, uh, where an answer to this can be had properly. I mean, in convincing manner, better to say. So no, sorry, there is no such answer. So it all depends upon the dynamics of the artificial neural network model that is going to operate on a particular data set or a particular application that on which it is applied. So uh, at least my hunch says that it's very difficult also, because try to understand from one problem to another, depending upon the nature of the problem, which particular, which number of nodes in the hidden layer could be an appropriate one. It's possibly not possible, because in order to have some answer, uh, the question itself appears, to me at least, appears to be ill-posed, in the sense that in order to have the answer, conclusive answer, you need so many issues associated, the answer of which must be known, and that is not there. Uh, for example, even before that, the question comes, given a problem, how many hidden layers should be there? Is it one? Is it two? Or how many? The common thumb rule is that the more complex the problem is, more non-linearity is there in the problem, the more number of hidden nodes you have to introduce. But well then, even after this, if someone asks what exactly should, given a problem, what exactly should be the number of hidden layers be there? There is no such answer, because ascertaining the degree of nonlinearity of a problem, is there any metric? Unfortunately, no. The cause effect relationship is not exactly very much available to anyone of course. That is why I am trying to indicate that it's so that there is a thumb rule to guide everybody among us, that the more the nature of nonlinearity is associated to a problem, the more number of hidden layers you may need to introduce for its the classification or recognition. But that is a thumb rule. But exactly what it should be and how should be the relationship, it is not known. Thank you. Yeah, very good question. Next.
Next is by Kunal Roy. Out of backpropagation and conjugate gradient neural networks, which one gives optimum solution?
To be honest, none. Uh, if possibly you are trying to pose the question that first of all, out of these two, any one of these or maybe both, are they going to guarantee that optimum optimization will be reached? If that is your question, answer is no. Uh, it may not, and there is no theoretically established result that it will. I mean, the convergence will be guaranteed. No.
Another one by Mr. Deepak Kumar Ghosh. In the neurogenetic algorithm, what are the parameters that were optimized by the genetic algorithm?
I'm sorry, please repeat.
In neurogenetic algorithm,
Mhm.
what are the parameters that were optimized by the genetic algorithm?
These are the neural network parameters.
Hmm.
These are the neural network parameters. See, uh, genetic algorithm is an optimizer. Now the question is where exactly the optimization is taking place. This optimization, as an optimizer, what genetic algorithm plays the role of, is being used in the context of the choice of the parameters of the neural network model. Okay, so uh, so there, I mean, so far as so far as, so far as the particular neural network implementation, it may be that the MSE, average MSE, the particular iteration is taken into consideration. So if our problem is minimization of the MSE, it's an optimization problem. So which particular combination of parameters will give you the or offer you the least MSE, that may be your consideration. So that way the optimization works. So far as our problem, it's a general statement that I have made. So far as this specific problem is concerned, our problem is concerned, we have all along considered average MSE as our performance metric or metric of consideration, and accordingly we try to minimize it. And for that, which combination of parameters will be the best one or optimized one, that has been done by genetic algorithm.
Yes, sir. Sir, next question is by Mr. Pushpen Lahiri. It's a long question, so I'll be reading it out slowly. It's a paragraph type of question, actually. For a real life project with very less available literature, it is a challenging issue for selecting appropriate algorithms, but it is really appreciable when we receive good results. Sir, what is the key to decide initially those algorithms suitable for this job? Like noise filtering, we applied one algorithm, but the nature of noise is unknown. Is it based on experience?
Ah, very interesting question. Uh, yeah, experiences or something uh, something you cannot deny. To be honest, maybe my personality, maybe 5 years back or 10 years back, and my perception today, entirely different. My insight in the subject at that time and what is prevalent right now is different. So you cannot deny. Coming to the question of not, I mean, accepting that experience is one thing, but experience is not all. There are specific guidelines, technical guidelines uh, for choosing a particular type of algorithm that may be useful in different contexts. Uh, First of all, there are different type of. In fact, this is not exactly the point of discussion of today's one, but since the question has come, let me try to answer it in brief. So there are different learning mechanisms. First of all, you know, supervised learning, non-supervised learning, and different forms of learning. Now, say it's the question very much like, well, suppose you are in the practice of supervised learning, where someone is the teacher, and there is a learner. The teacher is imparting knowledge to the learner. A learner is getting something from the teacher, and this loop goes on. After some time, there is an examination sort of thing, which is basically a feedback. And if this is satisfactory, fine. Otherwise, this loop goes on until satisfaction. That means when the teacher or trainer is satisfied that the learner has indeed come up to a level where knowledge-wise it's fine. Okay. Now coming to the question of getting an idea by the trainer as to whether the learner has indeed learned That is precisely what the question is all about. CGNN backpropagation is part of feedback, which is used for understanding of the uh, trainer as to how far the learner has learned. Okay. Now, getting convinced about the level of learning by the learner uh, and the nature of examination to be conducted is entirely the discretion of the trainer. Whether it will be a multiple choice question uh, type, it will be a broad answer type or short answer type or what. This is not to say that, well, uh, any form of examination is unquestionable. No. Whatever form, I mean, formality or whatever form is being adapted to to judge the level of learning of a learner is questionable. And here exactly where you need to, when you need your experience, number one, to some extent, as I have indicated. And moreover, number two, your extensive, notwithstanding your experience, your extensive analysis and experimentation mix has got their role to play. You cannot deny that. In spite of your experience, in spite of your experience, uh, it's very difficult to say that, well, in a specific context, given the context described fully, CGNN is the best performer all the time. No. Or maybe backpropagation is the panacea. No. So it may so happen that in respect of certain context, BPNN performs nice. In some other context, CGNN performs better. In fact, that is the reason why the ensemble mechanisms have come up. By ensemble, we means there are different, different platforms, different algorithms, bouquet of sort of algorithms, may be applicable in different contexts. And in a given a specific context, the particular one which is the best performer will be picked up. Okay, so as if you are moving in a shop where there are different options, you have to exercise which particular one you have to choose out of them, given your fund constant or budget constant, whatever it is. So it's like this. Performance-wise, in a specific context, the best algorithm or most efficient algorithm that may be workable can be picked up from that bouquet. It's called ensemble. So the question of ensemble representation or ensemble, form of presentation has come up because of this. To sum up, experience suggests something. Experience is something, no doubt about it. But it is not all. And even experience, even the best experienced person has to go for experimentation. What is important is that to get some idea, experience suggests that, well, this type of experiment, if conducted in this way, possibly may give you good result. You can think. That is what is guidance. That is what is supervision, right? But for that matter, TGNN is the only performer here, nothing else. Any experienced person can say, I doubt. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for your explanation, nice explanation. And we can easily see that how igniting is your talk. The number of questions are really increasing. You have already answered in first half,
So,
and this half also.
in spite of fabulous lunch on Sunday, people are sacrificing that.
Yes, sir. I was also about to mention that we are almost crossing the lunch hour also. So we will quickly take questions. Next question is, sir, with your due permission,
Yes.
sir, we will proceed. Yeah, it's the question by Piyush Kanti Datta Pramanik. Sir, in a dynamic, parameters change very frequently, means within bracket it is written, and strictly time constraint system, which intelligent optimization method would you suggest? Number one question. Number two, so shall I read out the second one?
Yeah.
Does hybrid intelligence increase runtime complexity?
Very good question. Very interesting question. It, the nature of question itself is indicative that people were very much engrossed with the talk. I mean, whatever rubbish the talk may be, but even then some very interesting questions have come up. Uh, so far as time dependent, what is known as, otherwise known as temporal observations. So the question of temporal observations and their optimization. Well, first of all, for dealing with temporal or time dependent neural network models, recurrent models are there, number one. Recently, the recurrent convolutional neural network, RCNN, has also been reported. So for big data and issues like that. So that's separate issue altogether. But when you have to deal with time dependent scenario or dynamic scenario, time dependent scenario and dynamic scenario like this, recurrent nature of neural network model may come to your rescue on most of the occasions. So this is the new choice of your neural network model. Coming to the optimization problem or optimizer, evolutionary algorithms may it be genetic in any evolutionary family, may it be genetic, neurogenetic, I mean, may it be genetic, may it be particle swarm and colony optimization, simulated handling, whatever. Each and every one is basically by dint of their evolutionary nature, they themselves are time dependent because epoch-wise they perform. With respect to epochs or iterations, they try to reach to the best solution or optimum solution as a goal. So that is the way they work. Philosophically, they work. The question of choice of any optimization, time dependent in that sense, is automatically there because if you opt for an optimizer which is of evolutionary nature, it's already associated there. You cannot deny that. Coming to the neural network component, the temporality in the neural network component I have already indicated. It's the recurrent sort of model that may be useful in those contexts. What was the second question, by the way? I forgot. Can you please repeat, ma'am?
Sorry. Does hybrid intelligence increase runtime complexity?
Yeah, I mean, you cannot deny that. Hybridization means that, I mean, more than one component is being clubbed, they are being clubbed together so that the deficiency of one can be overcome by the strength of the other. So this is the basic philosophy, right? And when it comes to the question of its execution, all the processes involved and all the computational overheads are associated, they must be there. How can you deny that?
Thank you, sir. So we move on to next question from Pratik Bhattacharjee. Is it possible to identify unknown toxic gas whose lethal level is unknown by this system?
Question is, detection of a gas depends upon the sensor you use. So when it's the question of unknown gas, if you don't know the chemical nature of the gas, you have no idea about the chemical nature of the gas, and as such it is unknown in that sense, the term, you cannot have a sensor for that. Okay, and in the absence of any sensor earmarked for that, its sensing is impossible. What may so happen that in a system, sensor for some other target gas may sense the unknown gas to some extent because of cross sensitivity, but that is that may not be that much significant, and from that component, that insignificant component, guessing as to which type of gas it is, that unknown gas it is, is rather a chemical problem than a pattern recognition problem. So it's not exactly our purview that works there. See, the problem is when it's a question of pattern recognition, these are numbers basically. So ideally, in the absence of cross sensitivity, your number should have been say 3.5. In the presence of cross sensitivity, it is coming as 3.62. So this 3.5 and 3.62, this 0.12 is because of this cross sensitivity component. Now, in the absence of any sensor for the unknown gas, as you are indicating, the difference indicates that there is some unknown gas. But what that gas is, that cannot be detected or identified by this 0.12 difference. No, because we are dealing with numbers only. There is no chemical property that we are using.
Thank you very much, sir, for your illustration. So we have two questions on chat box. Though we have requested participants to post questions in QA area if you have any. So the question is how to create image dataset in .csv format from Subroto Jana.
No, image data set from
Image dataset .csv format. CSV format. In CSV formats, I mean
CSV formats, the standard image format conversion is there already. Say, for example, GIF, TIFF, PNG, all these standard dataset formats, the existing conversion mechanisms are there. I am not very sure, to be honest, but possibly they are there. You can try it out. Otherwise, there is, there is in absence of any such conversion mechanism, you have to write it down. No, there is no way you can get rid of, unfortunately. But I am not sure. But my experience suggests that between any two standard formats, there is conversion mechanism available already there in internet or otherwise. You can
that can be explored.
Yeah, but I'm not sure.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Next is from the same participant. How to calculate time complexity neural network? I think. Yeah. In your time.
The number of times your feedback and feed forward, that means the loop works, number one. That gives rise to some sort of a number of iterations, so to say, number one. Number two, number of nodes in the input layer, number of nodes in the output layer. That means the configuration is equal, number of hidden layers in between, and with number of nodes in each and every layer. Then the adjustment by the algorithm, whether it is CGNN or the propagation or whatever it may be, you use the complexity of that. All these things together come into the picture. So basically, to come out your result starting from the scratch, that means starting from the initialization, immediately after initialization, whatever involvement, computational involvement is there, all these things must come in your computational complexity analysis.
Thank you very much, sir. So far, the questions concerned, we are done. And very sincere thanks from ourselves.
So, let me thank you all for giving me the opportunity to share some of my findings. I hope if they, I'll be happy, helpful for some. Okay.